Hey there, listeners. Welcome to Seek Travel Ride, where we share inspiring stories of incredible bike adventurers from all around the world. I'm your host, Bella Malloy, and I'm thrilled you're tuning in. This episode is brought to you by Old Man Mountain, trusted bike racks built for adventure. Whether you're hitting rugged trails or cycling across continents, Old Man Mountain racks carry your gear with unbeatable durability. They're engineered to fit any bike, they're designed to handle heavy loads and tough terrain, which makes them a perfect choice for your bike adventure. So if you're feeling inspired hearing our guests' stories and now looking to gear up for your own bike tour, Old Man Mountain has your back. Visit oldmanmountain.com and discover how their racks can make all the difference on your adventure. Okay, listeners, so we have another midweek episode here, which of course shares what it was like on one day of your trip. I can tell you this day is a fantastic story that's going to be coming to you from listener David McCourt, and he's going to be sharing a day of his amazing journey. Before we hear David, I just wanted to have a quick shout out to all of you people out there who have recently discovered the podcast. In the last few weeks, the podcast has picked up a whole heap of new followers, and I'm really glad to see that you're tuning into the show. Definitely take a moment to trawl through the podcast back catalogue, because as we come closer to 100 full-length feature episodes, there's bound to be an episode, or maybe even 10, that you are going to be wanting to tune into to get your own inspiration for the show. Something else that I've noticed is there's a lot of people who listen to the show who aren't actually following it in their podcast players, which means that you don't get notified when new episodes drop. But even more than that, following the show in your podcast player actually helps me at Seek Travel Ride out immensely. It helps push me into more and more podcast charts and expose the podcast to even more people. So if you're not following us yet, please take the time to do it. It costs you nothing, but it helps me out heaps. So today, as I mentioned, we are featuring adventurer David McCourt. His journey was an absolutely incredible one. It started in Melbourne, Australia, with the end point of Cushendall in Northern Ireland, which is the village where his family is actually from. And I'm sure there are many, many stories for David to tell us about. But he has chosen one day where he was in Malaysia. And no one tells this story better than David himself. Let's listen to him now share one day of his trip.
Hello, my name is David McCourt. In June 2022, I left my doorstep in Melbourne on my fully loaded bicycle with a view to cycle all the way back to my original village of Cushendall in Northern Ireland. Over the next 2.5 years, I would cycle over 38,000 kilometres through 27 countries, including the deserts of Central Australia, the jungles of North India, the high Himalaya of Nepal, and the mountainous deserts of Iran, just to name a few of the places I visited. It was an incredible adventure, and I cannot wait to tell you more about it. So one of the days that stands out in my mind about the bike ride was when I was in North Malaysia. I was actually cycling from the west coast to the east coast via this road. Another cyclist I'd met along the way had told me about the possibility of seeing elephants in the north. So I found myself cycling along this highway through tropical jungle. As I was pedaling up that road, I noticed heaps of signs of elephants. There was lots of dung all over the place. And as luck would have it, I came across a pair of elephants, a mother and a baby, in the long grass just off the side of the road. It was an absolutely magical experience to see these majestic animals outside of the zoo, not behind any fences. This is just them in their natural habitat. So that was so cool. But as I was heading up this road after having had that experience and, having actually seen some elephants, I was thinking, well, where am I going to sleep tonight? Because I was planning to camp, but as it got towards the end of the day, I wasn't sure whether or not I was in any danger because of the elephants. Were they aggressive, or would they notice me in my tent somewhere? So I happened to have met a Malaysian ecologist earlier in the day who was doing some other work in a different part of the jungle. So I sent him a message on WhatsApp to ask him, what's the story? Is there any risk to me from the elephants? And all he replied was with the following: if you see an elephant, run. So I didn't feel great about that as I headed further up this road, and was really hoping to come across some sort of human structure that I could either camp inside or near, might make me feel a little bit safer. So earlier in the day, I'd sort of hiked up from the side of the road to try and get a better viewpoint of where I was and the surrounding area. And on the way back down, I slipped and I cracked the lens of my camera. So that was a bit of a boo-boo. But fortunately, it was just the polarizing cap. So my camera wasn't too damaged. Another detail that comes to mind was I also had some of the best laksa I've ever had in my entire life. This delicious creamy noodle soup that was recommended to me by the same ecologist guy that I met in the jungle. He'd give me the good oil on where to get some delicious food. As the day tore on and dusk came in, I actually noticed this big thunderstorm. So it was going to be a rough night. And a few more kilometers up the road, I came across this big compound. So maybe 100 meters by 100 meters with these tall fences, 4 meters or so. And then this tower, this 3-story tower in the middle. The gate was locked and there was no one home by the looks of things. So I decided that might be the perfect place to sleep. Fortunately, there was a small gap underneath the fence where I could slide my tent and other bits and pieces. And then I was able to hop the fence. So I chained the bicycle to the outside of the fence and hopped over just in time, because then the heavens opened and rain, tropical rain, started pouring down, bucketing cats and dogs, thunder and lightning. So I was really happy to have the shelter of the tower. Set up my tent, made some dinner, did my usual routine. I also climbed the tower. There's a staircase that took me up to the top, and I was able to watch the storm, watch these crazy thunder and lightning bursting across the sky. And then heading back down to my tent to sleep for the night. I had the head torch on, of course, and I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. So I trained the light on it to get a closer look, and I noticed this huge tarantula, the biggest spider I'd ever seen in my life. I took a photograph of this spider with my watch held out, which I'll send to you so you can see it for scale, but this massive hairy tarantula just slowly walking up the wall. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen, after already having such a great day seeing those 2 wild elephants. So I settled into my tent for the night in the dry shelter of this tower, and then the next morning had these incredible views with the dawn mist rising up out of the jungle, all that humidity and moisture from the night before. So I watched the sunrise from the top of the tower before packing everything up, sliding it back onto the fence, getting back on my bike, and then continuing along the road across the east coast of Malaysia. So that was a really lovely standout day for me, one of many on the road on my trip back to Ireland.
Thank you so much, David, for sharing that incredible day on your trip. It was a day which seemed to have everything, didn't it? It had epic weather, remote countryside, elephant spotting, a little bit of fear, then the adventure within to find your own shelter, and then to top it all off, a huge tarantula, which, can I just say, I really love that your instinct was it was one of the coolest things that you'd ever seen. I know many people would not perhaps have that reaction at seeing a spider that was that monumentally big. But you seem to take it all in your stead there on what turned out, listeners, to be an absolutely incredible journey. And listeners, I have to say, David is an epic storyteller, and I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing him just a few days ago. And his stories were so amazing and wild that whilst it was possibly one of the longest podcast sessions I've actually conducted, David and I have actually since agreed that there are too many stories left unheard, and we are going to try and get another podcast session in. So you'll get to look forward to not 1 but 2 future episodes in the coming weeks, which will tell us all about David's trip. Just a quick shout out, if you live in Melbourne, Australia, you have the opportunity to see David live and sharing more of his story there as well. It's an event which is hosted by Off Course Bikes. I have a real soft spot for them because they're actually the store that I bought my very first gravel/touring bike from. Off Course Bikes are running the event. It's going to be at Inner North Brewing in Brunswick, Melbourne, on Wednesday the 4th of December at 6:30pm. David's going to do a presentation, a bit of a slideshow, and a Q&A. So again, get yourself down there if you are free Wednesday the 4th of December and see David in person. Now, I've had a few donations roll in again, this time from anonymous people on Buy Me a Coffee. All I can say to you, lovely people, is thank you so much for your kind support of the show. I really, really appreciate it. And it's so great for me to see that there's people in this Seek Travel Ride community who are so supportive of the work that I'm producing. Once again, I've posted a link in the show notes So if you so feel inclined, you can also do me a favour, buy me some virtual coffees online, which all go towards the running costs of the show. Thank you so much to all of you who have already done so. And until the next episode, I'm Bella Malloy. Thanks for listening. And that's a wrap on today's adventure. Before you head off, here's a final shout out to Old Man Mountain for supporting the podcast. If you're dreaming of a new bike adventure or mapping out your next big tour, you want to make sure your gear can keep up with you every pedal stroke of the way. Old Man Mountain racks are built to handle any terrain you choose, from rough off-road trails to smooth highways, giving you reliable, stable carrying power that frees you up to focus on your adventure. Check out their full range at oldmanmountain.com and start gearing up for wherever your next journey takes you.